Hello everyone, Ollie here. Over the past few months I've been building an ultra high-end desk PC and filmed as much as I could of the whole process. The goal was to create a sleek ultra high-end work and gaming PC that could run both macOS and Windows. So stay tuned for the full spec breakdown, costs and more glamour shots at the end. Meanwhile, here's how it was made. Starting with the desk build, I went onto my local DIY website and bought a single 2440 by 1220mm sheet of 12mm thick plywood. That costs around £35 or $45 plus delivery if you can't transport it yourself. I had previously used Figma to create a bird's eye view of what the desk layout should be. I've linked that down below so you can have a peek. This meant I knew how much material I needed, and using this design I was able to measure and draw all of the pieces I needed onto the one sheet and chop it all up to size. Once all the pieces were cut to size, I made holes for the radiators, fans and access holes for the motherboard backplate and the GPU outputs. To secure the radiators in position, I wanted to recess them slightly into the plywood, so using a router I cut the exact size of the radiator to create a snug fit. I wanted to render my desk in a carbon fibre vinyl wrap, and after searching a while on the web I found the most cost-effective way of doing this was to buy a roll of automotive vinyl wrap. I found a roll for £60, which is around $80. I hadn't previously wrapped anything, but there are hundreds of car wrap videos on YouTube that told me the do's and don'ts. You'll definitely need a heat gun in order to get a nice heat shrunk finish. Once I had finished wrapping the base of the desk PC, I wanted to make sure that the radiators that would eventually be placed in the two large rectangular cutouts still fit nicely. It was a very snug fit. Once this was done, it was then a case of wrapping each individual piece as neatly as possible. I wrapped each part individually for a couple of reasons, mainly because the idea of wrapping the desk once it's all together as a complex shape would most likely not have turned out as neat for a novice. Also, smaller pieces mean that if I made a mistake, I would only have to have used up a small piece of the vinyl. Originally, I was going to join the wooden parts of the desk together with dowels, but in the end I just used screws as they were all out of sight anyway. For the legs of the desk, I Frankensteined my old height adjustable IKEA desk legs. This also came with a mesh for keeping the cables tidy, which I fitted to. Next, I wanted to mount up to 3 monitors on this desk, and I didn't want to take up any desk space. By searching grommet mounted triple monitor stand on Google, plenty of results turned up. The stand that I found had a foot small enough to fit in the void of the desk, making it seem like there would be 3 27-inch monitors being supported by one tiny pole. I had already spent some time putting together the components of the PC, and because this video is about building a PC in a desk, I'll leave out the details of that. The main reason for building beforehand is to eliminate variables in problem solving if something doesn't work once it's complete. This way I know for sure each component worked before fitting it. Quite simply, I removed each component from the case of the built PC and placed each of them where they are in the design. I had only air cooled the components in the test rig, so all water cooling components needed to be added. Due to the unusual placement of components in this desk PC, most of the regular cables that you get with PSUs, motherboards or even graphics cards weren't long enough. I got in touch with a company called Shack Mods who were able to provide all the custom cables I needed, as well as create some custom cable combs for the long white fan cables you'll see later.
Game begin.
For pure aesthetic purposes, I decided that I wanted to cable each Corsair QR120 RGB fan individually to the fan controller. Each fan has 8 connections. It has 4 for the fan and 4 for the RGB LEDs. And because of this, I used a single Ethernet cable which has 8 cores. This took by far the longest, and what made this even worse was once it was all complete, the RGB didn't work correctly. I had a problem with the data signal being sent from the RGB controller not being strong enough and had flickering LEDs on all fans, let alone the voltage drop. I tried as many things as I could think of, and after around 800 individual solder joints of trial and error, I decided to make my own fan controller. More on that in a bit. In frustration, I moved on and started installing the 2 individual cooling loops, one for the CPU and one for the GPU. All fittings, tubed and even the fluid I used were EK branded, apart from the 2 90-degree fittings on top of the CPU block, which were Fantech. I needed to use these here as they were the only fitting that had enough clearance between the glass desktop. I didn't really have any technique for the pipe bending. I just put the design down on the desk and started to bend tubes. For the majority of the bends, I used a 90-degree angle that I had in a water cooling starter kit, but for the larger bends, I carefully freehanded it. Back to the fans now. I decided to completely remove the factory fitted cables from the PCBs inside the fans and connect a custom 8-core cable directly instead. I wanted to eliminate as many joins as possible to help eliminate the voltage drop. So as you can see here, I removed the factory cables and cleared any old solder lingering behind. I then prepped the new cables and the PCB contacts using new solder and joined them together. Off camera, I checked to see if this fixed the problem. The signal and the power were better, but still not good enough. I was using the Corsair lighting node core and the Corsair Commander Pro to power the fan and the fan RGB LEDs, but they were unable to pull enough current to get around the signal drop problem. They weren't designed to power fans or cables this long. So I got my thinking cap on and decided to code an Arduino to do exactly the same thing as the Corsair products, but allow more power to be pulled down the cables. I found a Corsair lighting protocol project on GitHub created by Legion 2, which allows you to create an Arduino to be recognized as a Corsair product and function in exactly the same way. I gave it a go and it worked nicely. I do all my coding on a Mac, and Corsair don't provide software for Mac. Why would they? In order to test the IQ lighting settings, there is a command line tool called Liquid Control, which is a collaborative project on GitHub. I'll put a link below. This is what you can see me using here, basically turning on the rainbow LEDs and then turning them off. Now I knew I could get enough power to one fan, it was time to prep all the cables and test each individual fan and fan RGB LEDs using the Arduino solution. Next, I need to program the Arduino and build a circuit that will work with multiple fans. After some trial and error, you can see all the fans light up eventually. Oh, and spin. Now I had finally prototyped a solution to power all the fans. I needed to turn my breadboard full of prototype cables into a more permanent solution. In order to deliver enough power, I had to use two Arduinos with two 5-volt PSU rails and one 12-volt PSU rail. The Corsair RM850 that I have powering this desk PC had a couple of spare PCIe power slots available, so I soldered some of the Molex connectors to the new fan controller, and I then used those to power all of the fans and the fan RGB. This is what the final fan controller looks like. All that was left to do was to connect everything up. And that's it. I'll leave this to play through. So there it is. There are a few bits I didn't mention, like this easy access hatch for hiding frequently used cables. There is an access hole for the back of the motherboard, but it's a bit awkward to get to. The hatch on top means you can plug in a cable once and pull it up when you need to use it. I didn't really show you what it looks like underneath. The mesh cable tidy is mainly holding the power supplies for the 3 monitors. There's also a PSU mount at the back of the desk. Now, if you're going to be using this day and night, the RGB can get overwhelming, but you can turn it off. It's just as impressive to look at, or you can cover it up with a large desk mat like I have sometimes. So how much did everything cost? Well, the components for the computer alone were £3,238.92, which is about $4,200. The cooling, which is the fans and anything to do with the water cooling, was just under £1,600, which is around $2,000. The materials for the desk, which includes the wood, glass, legs, everything like that, is £469, which is about $600. And the accessories and tools came in at $1,400, and this includes the 3 monitors, the keyboard and the mouse. In total, I spent £6,687.47, which is around $8,700. This is my first ever video. I have lots more footage to put together, so if you did find this video interesting, please do like it and even subscribe and press the bell so that you know when I put my next video up. Until next time, thanks for watching.